have to once again take the next right that a lot of people don't even really notice who are behind you. And there are people just, add, to the 18 households now. Another 35 going through that way. There's no way you can make a neighborhood and extend it with only one egress. There's gotta be, if they're gonna really do a neighborhood. And I've got really nothing against another neighborhood. I'd rather have a neighborhood than something industrial behind us if we're gonna actually develop that. But we have to have a safer way on a second safe way, not just an emergency way, onto Route 4. Because this is a disservice to the people who would be moving in as well, not only to our neighborhood, but for those 35 families, how are they going to get anywhere? They're gonna have to go through a snaking neighborhood drive onto Knights Pond, and then most people are heading south or west, either to Dover or to Portsmouth. Some people are heading probably towards Portland. Either way, dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. Are we going to get maybe, I don't know, a light there? That's going to make just a huge traffic jam. And we're going to be surrounded by all of the cars. They're just going to be at a still stand. I'm just thinking out ahead, right? If you have to put like some kind of stoppage of traffic there, it's going to be horrible. It's going to really wreck that whole neighborhood. And it's going to have ramifications for, this is going to sound dramatic, for the rest of South Berwick too. Because a lot of people use Knights Ponds to access the other neighborhoods, going into the Aggie Estates or going over to the Great Hill. I just can't imagine having all of these extra neighborhood cars coming in and out without another egress onto Route 4. Because you're going to be asking those people in the new neighborhood too to go north, just to head south probably as well through a very dangerous path. And I don't see how that's going to happen without more added, injuries, accidents on Route 4, which is already a hazard. We hear, sirens very often. It's the traffic is just getting, more and more. It's increased every single year. It's like say, not going to be good for the new neighbors either if that goes through.
Thank you, Nicole. Next.
Raymond Holden, 325 Irving's Bridge Road. I'm here to speak on a whole different subject.
Oh.
But coming up and on this whole situation, I live on 325 Irving's Bridge Road. And I'm not sure if we're right off the Hooper Sands Road, right down from Meadow Pond. When anybody wants to go to dinner, when everybody wants to do anything, they don't go down 91, they don't go down 236 to get to Wells or Dunkin'. They come right by my house. So the population in this town is outgrown. We're 90%, 10% business to ratio to residential. Our taxes just went up 20%, 22% in this town because we don't have enough business. So when I hear about we don't want new houses, but we don't want residential, we don't want this, we don't want business, we don't want more houses in, but we don't want commercial. You've got to offset in this town. You can't have it both ways. I would like to see the town be more aggressive towards going after landowners like Mr. Mick did back in the day. But the profit they want to do is build homes and build whatever, not a business. It's spends money, you're open 5 days a week, they employ people, they spend the money in the town, then they go home to wherever they live. South Berwick is a crossroads. We've been a crossroads for years. We can't control who builds in Berwick. We can't control who builds in North Berwick. How do they get to this? How do they get to the seacoast where they're going to go work? Where they're going to go to Boston, where they're going to go to Portsmouth, whatever. They either go down 236 or they go down Route 4 out of Rochester, whatever. If there's an accident, you can't get down 236. We have been a crossroads for years. There was going to be a bypass put in years ago, but the town people down in town thought they were going to lose their businesses, so they didn't let the bypass. And what did? We lost our business anyway because you can't control the traffic from Berwick. We have built. We've become a housing community, and a housing community costs town money. It costs right now it's $15,000 to put a kid through the school. If I had my 2 kids in school right now, it'd be $30,000. I pay, my taxes just went up, I pay $6,000. You do the math, I figured it out, it comes out to, after my kids do 12 years in school, I end up paying $297,000 that I owe to the town of Southborough just to pay for those kids to go to school. If we don't stop this and we don't start building business, and I'm not, you have, it doesn't ruin your town. North Berwick has 2 beautiful businesses. I'm not saying we're gonna have a Pratt Whitney and a Huzzy Seating, but we have to do something to bring some revenue into this town. We can't just keep building houses and our taxes going up the way it is, because a house does, between what it costs for services to put a house in, between fire, rescue and all that, and then when it puts them in the school, we're not functioning. And we're not gonna be functioning. We're gonna go down like this. Next year, 2 years from now, we're gonna go up and up, and then we're not gonna be able to afford to live here. The quality of life is gonna go downhill unless we start getting business minded. Go to the other people in this town that own big pieces of the land, like Sammy Mick was smart and he's done a lot. He did a lot in this town and whatever. He had a vision and that's his vision. But years ago, building some houses wasn't that big of a deal. We put Agabus Estates in. That was supposed to be a complex. They wanted to put a business complex in there. That got shot down. We need to look to the landowners that still own here, and no, I don't want huge businesses like Walmart, but there are other businesses out there that eco-friendly, work into our environment and give us a tax base. I'm where I'm at. We've been, my family's lived 5 generations in that same house. I'm not going anywhere until I have to. But I can't control people driving by my house. Do I want to? Yes, but I can't. That's just, it's growth. But if we can find a way to slow it down, find a way to bring some tax base in this town, that's where we need to go. And that's my.
Thank you. So just a general comment. I know Hershey and I attended a comp plan meeting a week or so ago, and it was is very much aware and focused on the concept of business growth. And frankly, I'm pleased with what I'm seeing and the direction that we're potentially headed. Wherever the comp plan ends, I don't know. So I would urge everybody to pay attention to the developments. That's where you're going to get the most bang for the buck in terms of your conversation. This was the same conversation that was.
And one point on that, if you're gonna build a new development, they do it at North Conway, whatever, let's do a 50 and over though. At least we're not putting kids in the school system.
Yep, and so it's a zoning issue. Issues were identified within ordinances that I don't think, obviously there's 2 sides to every story, but I think it's fair to say there is some general conversation about that. And so
the video's working for this very second.
Let me finish.
Yep.
And so, but, we're on the way to approve another building in the industrial zone that is a business. So we are working on doing it. And so.
There's some tax base.
Putting them in. So why don't we go to this video?
Great.
Yeah, really.
Thank
So
you.
I'm gonna screen share. Yep. So that people at home hopefully can see it. Share.
But you can't post it on the.
Everyone, nope. Listen, we're using hotspot on people's cell phones. We're doing the best we can. All right, here we go.
I don't understand it. It's Clay. Clearly, this is driving Route 4 towards North Berwick and turning onto Knights Pond Road, which Nicole's talking about. This was taken on March 5th after, the last snowstorm, but clearly the plows have been out. Okay. Those of you who don't know, when you cross the South Berwick town line, Knights Pond Road becomes Harvey Road. So we interchange the terms all the time, saying Meadow Pond on the Knights Pond, but it's Meadow Pond at the heart. Just for those on the board, so you can see this. Now, this was just by chance. I had a vehicle coming out as I was pulling in, and you can see how narrow that is. Okay.
That was completely staged. Come on.
No. But this is important to watch because this is not an unusual event. This is what we face every winter for most of the winter, in spite of the plows trying to do their best effort to keep this clear. And that road that, or the stretch where you see the sidewalks cleared, that's because the homeowners in Meadow Pond clear that sidewalk because there's a bus stop for kids out on the Harvey Road entrance. And we clear that because the other alternative is for them to walk through the street. This is going down, you're gonna see past the pond area in our neighborhood. And again, none of this is straight. It's windy back and forth, up and down, and very narrow. And again, the plows have been through here. You're coming up onto the intersection of Whitetail Drive. Hopefully we don't lose it. And we're gonna continue, because this is where that traffic is gonna be going if the entire neighborhood comes through our development.
What speed did you say you were going?
25, posted 25, I was doing 25. This is coming down to the far cul-de-sac. I'll turn the camera so you can look down to see where the access would be. That's the driveway, and the emergency egress that's been locked is down there. And then this is around that cul-de-sac. And again, I didn't stage this. This is normal for our traffic in spite of the plows having come through there. How narrow this is. And then you'll see we continue out the other, back out to the street. And what I don't show in this video is, and it's been mentioned by some of the people here, when you get to the end of Meadow Pond Road and have to make either a right or left onto Harvey Road, you know, Jake and I were talking the other day, you know, we've driven all our lives. I can't tell you how many times I've looked, pulled out, and there's somebody right on my tail. Because there is no line of sight off of Meadow Pond onto Harvey Road in either direction.
Are there houses on left and right of that road where it
No,
comes out?
no, it's just that there's no lot, it's all homeowners association property through there. But it's right up to the roadway, there's no shoulder there, and the road to the north going up towards Route 4 has a crest, so you lose sight of anybody over that crest. And if you go in the other direction towards your property, sir, the road takes a sharp turn and you lose visibility of traffic coming from that way. And it's posted at 35, but we all know what people are going to do. And you try to pull out of there, and I don't care how careful you are, there's been near accidents over and over. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, what I was saying, because of out of town, this is just not South Berwick traffic. This is from Berwick and whatever. People come down Corpus Sands Road and they go over Belmarsh and go over Myers Road and cut across because they don't want to go down 236. So the increased traffic right now across Corpus Sands Road is unbelievable. And that's not hometown traffic. That's traffic from out of town. That's people cutting through our area all the time. Is it gonna stop? No, until I mean, I don't know the answer, but we're gonna talk about what we're gonna build in our town. We can't control what's building out of town. And the guy had the right idea, right where you're talking about. He was gonna put a bypass in. And it was gonna go right down through where they put the gas line in. It was gonna go down the other side of 91 and go on 236. Now eliminate a lot of problems. But Berwick is growing. Everybody north of us is growing. North Berwick, and they're all finding a way to get to the seacoast. There's only two ways to get there. And they're finding the easiest. Now that we're doing construction down on 236, hopefully they're gonna widen it and they're gonna make it better. But you're more than welcome to come up, sit in my house. I could run for mayor.
So,
I mean, this is crazy.
so just, I drive that exact road. I'm to take a left onto Harvey Road. I'm always looking in my rearview mirror. And getting ready to move if I need to, really. And then every time I come down Harvey Road, getting up over that crest, I probably almost ran into many of you here. And so, in particular, if someone drives a white SUV, I think it's either Kia or Jeep. That seems to be where they're every time.
Yes.
And anyway, and so.
Yeah.
So, any other conversation? Sir?
Yeah, Brian Duguay, 10 Whitetail Drive. I'll second all of the concerns brought up regarding safety. We're one of the families in the neighborhood that has 2 little kids. And it's, it's great to see the kids out riding bikes, learning how to ride bikes, rollerblades, and it's just not safe. 35 additional houses and whatever, 350 cars a day. It's just not safe. I really want to try to inject or provide the opportunity for you folks to inject some common sense here. Whatever traffic study was done, I think it might have been more focused going out to Route 4 through Industry Drive. What we're describing is real. I think there's an opportunity for a second opinion or an outside independent opinion or something to really study the effect of this traffic that we're all describing, because it seems completely out of touch with reality. So I don't know if the planning board has an opportunity to interject some common sense here, but that's what I'm asking.
Thank you, Diego, and I think we did ask for some further information. And again, I will afford the folks an opportunity. Sir? Nope, go ahead, I'm done, it's your opportunity.
I spent Meadow Pond Road, wanted to echo everything that was said, I've lived in Southborough for 15 years. We moved and invested into Meadow Pond from not only Agumenic Estates and Old Mill for the very reason that we were on bypass lanes, on High Knoll, our kids couldn't go outside and play, it was restricted to the driveway. And we searched out Meadow Pond for the very feel of that old school neighborhood where our kids could go outside and play with the other 18 kids, and the parents are on a text message and we all group together and watch the kids and they play outside until 9:30 and we get together and have campfires and really have that nice tight knit community feel. I'm not against 35 houses in South Berwick. If we could just get a crash gate at the joining of the two developments, you would solve every one of our concerns and allow them to move forward with their property as they see fit, but not drastically completely change the culture of that development that has been there for 15 years. 18, sorry, my math is off. And it's safety. The road again is windy. It's not, in my opinion, meant for that much traffic, let alone borderline what it currently already provides, let alone 350 more if that's the maximum or the perceived value of it. Especially in the winter time, as the video shows, it's really so again, if a crash gate would be the answer, just at that joining of the two properties, that would be all of our safety.
Kevin Etter, I live on White Hill Drive. I have 3 kids for 12. We just recently moved into town a couple of years ago and stumbled upon that little gem, Whitetail Meadow Pond, and that was a big draw for us to come in. Was the quaintness, the quietness, the simpleness of it, and it would really be sad for us to lose that with more traffic. I think ultimately, like we've all said, no one's opposed to having more houses in the town. That's the way the town wants to go, but just try to help us keep what we have and what's there, and for the many reasons that have been stated, but just people bought that. And I think many of us, if we had drastic changes to your own housing because someone else was doing something, you might not like that, and you may not be opposed to that person doing it, but if it has a severe impact on your day-to-day life in some way, that does impact you in some roundabout way. So that would be my goal, is how can we find a way to navigate working around that way to get in and out. I think we all have proposed ideas. We've talked with people about that, and we'd love to try to help collaborate and not fight, but just help to find a better situation. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another hand up.
Yeah, I just have one more thing. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that when you go down Meadow Pond Road, Sam can't do it. We've got unbelievable nature.
Rick, we see you and we'll get to you in 1 minute.
We actually saw 5 deer today on our walk, right behind my house. There's turkeys all over the place. Birds everywhere. There's a little Meadow Pond Road with turtles, geese, ducks. That's 350 cars. That disappears. That's what makes that a nice home area too. And I think the common sense answer is you put that gate there, Like Tony said, it solves everyone's.
So I'd like to hear from some additional people that haven't spoken.
You have
Yeah,
someone on Zoom that's waiting, just to let you know.
fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah, so those that haven't spoken. Man,
I just wondered, Elizabeth Morris and Meadow Pond, on our walk today, this gentleman here said that we would have an opportunity to respond to the traffic study. Is that coming later? Like how he wouldn't take some of our questions, suggested we waited until this meeting because we'd be given information about a traffic study.
so we do have a traffic study. I understand that there has been some questions about looking for some further information. Am I correct on that? Who is here to speak to the traffic study? Ken?
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned at the site walk, I'm Ken Wood from Manor Engineering. Diane Morabito from Sewell Company, at the request of the board, from our last meeting, analyzed the peak traffic both in the existing condition and in the proposed condition. She's remote. I believe she's tied in. And what I mentioned at the site walk, she can better explain the traffic generation as it exists today and also with the development of the subdivision. So can we bring her in, Jen? Maybe she can talk.
Yeah.
Diane,
Are
you
you
there?
ready for that?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm here.
We're kind of winging it here, but
Yeah.
maybe you can explain in detail. I believe the board has your traffic generation, the two diagrams that you sent me. So they can.
Yes, yep. So what we did was we looked at how many of those, the highest trip generation is the PM peak hour, where we're talking 35 one-way trips. And so to determine how those trips would come and go, we did traffic counts at Harvey Road, Knights Pond Road, and Meadow Pond Road to determine how the existing subdivision trips travel, because this subdivision would be expected to have similar residential patterns. So we did traffic counts at that intersection, and then we also did traffic counts at Knights Pond Road and Route 4 to determine what those traffic patterns are. And based upon that, we were able to determine how people in the subdivision, the expanded one, would travel. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just checking. So we're projecting, based upon those existing traffic patterns of the existing residences, that during the PM peak hour, the heaviest hour, there would be 8 additional cars coming out Meadow Pond Road and 7 entering Meadow Pond Road, and that 5 would be exiting via Industry. This assumes that it's not gated and both are open, and 15 would be entering at Industry. And again, those are one-way trips, and I heard a lot tonight about 350 cars. And that's not what we're projecting. Based upon IT data, we're talking 330 one-way trips. So that's 160 round trips. And most residences have 2 cars. So you're really only talking 70 cars in there spread out over the course of the day, not 350 cars. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I'm happy to take questions on these, but these were based upon the existing recorded patterns.
Hang on, we're one thing at a time here. I'm gonna let Ken respond if he has anything to further add to that.
So Diane, in summary, if in the existing condition with the 18 lots, no connection to Industry Drive, at Meadow Pond Road, we have 9 entering and 5 exiting during the PM peak for 14 total trips. Within the proposed conditions, with the addition of 35 homes, and we're going to assume for this case, but the diagram shows a connection to both Industry Drive and Meadow Pond. We had to have 7 enter and 8 exit for 15 total, so the difference of 1 trip in the PM peak hour, I believe.
No, that's incorrect. So the ones that I cited, so in the existing condition, there's 9 entering and 5 exiting.
Yeah,
So a total of 14 trips, which again shows a trip rate of less than 1 per household, which is kind of happened since the pandemic. We're using ITE rates, but not everybody's going into the office now. So we're actually seeing fewer trips, but we based them on the higher trips. So those are existing, and what we're projecting is 7 more coming in and 8 more coming out during that PM peak hour over existing conditions. So an addition of 15 one-way trips.
Okay, that's the additional traffic then.
Yeah, that's the additional 15 trips for the additional 35 lots.
Additional 15, I understand.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Because that's clear as mud, sir.
Ma'am, I just had one question for you. Your numbers and your calculations, does that include access and egress through industrial way, or is that exclusive, not using industrial way?
Those were based upon using both.
Okay, what would those numbers look like if we were not using industrial way? Just out of
If you were
curiosity.
not using industrial way, there would be 22 additional cars entering in the course of the PM peak hour, the heaviest hour of the day, and 13 extra cars exiting. So a total of 35 one-way trips.
Mr. Chair, if I may, could I?
Yeah,
address
go right
it?
ahead, yeah, landlord number, yeah.
So from the town of Berwick, I'm Phil Roy, I'm the vice chair for the Berwick Planning Board. I know in the previous meeting, Madam Vice Chair, we had addressed some conditions regarding use of industrial drive. I'm gonna say that I was overly naive in that last meeting, and I did not fully appreciate the scale of industrial activity in that facility when we had made those recommendations. And I don't know if you saw the same things I saw today. I have very great concerns with merging commercial and residential traffic. And I feel very strongly that we need to take a hard look at that. And I think as planning board members, I'm sure you guys have the same charge as us to ensure public safety. And I don't know if we're doing our due diligence, if we're going to allow industrial and commercial traffic to that magnitude with the level of industrial activity that's going on back there. You know, our town has a very small piece of this, but I think we would be creating more hazard by allowing that access without having some type of governing authority give us some feedback on that. And I don't know if that looks like Maine DOT or if that's OSH, because we're merging industrial and residential, but whose lane is that? And can anybody speak to that?
So this doesn't require a traffic movement permit, does it? Because it doesn't meet that trip threshold?
No.
Yeah, so DOT's out of it.
Okay. I wonder if OSH has anything to say about the commingling of commercial.
Well, you know,
I don't think it's different than a lot of, I mean, our industrial 1 and 2 are on each side of 236 and everybody uses that road. So
Okay.
I think the argument, and this was the discussion that we focused on last meeting as well, was you need 2 ways in and 2 ways out. And neither of them are really great options, right?
Right.
On one hand, we're really impacting these folks. And even if it's legal or not legal, we try to be sensitive to that. And the other option on industrial drive is also not industry drive is also not a great option in that, like you said, it doesn't really seem appropriate. It just does not seem like the road people who live there should go up and down either. Which sort of begs the question of, is there some third option?
I guess that would be my question of the developer. Are there any provisions that you guys could make an alternative egress that would not include industrial drive, or just in the interest of public safety?
how many pages are there?
You have 2.
Like you know, the record that says Meadow Pond Owners Association has even offered common land that is owned by us to the development as a way to bypass the use of Meadow Pond.
Right, if that's open space though, that was already set aside as part of the deal and you can't offer that, I don't think. I mean, I not that I want to give a lot of advice about it, but I believe.
Get third party authorization. People that are involved with that, great work.
Right, and
That's not great work plan.
it's not even who stewards it, it's that as part of the cluster development, you gave up that land and you can't now reuse it for something else, I think. It's part of your approval.
So I want to move on because I know we probably all have some comments. Out there. I'm gonna give the floor to Ken for a little bit.
So we have someone on Zoom that would like to
Yeah,
talk.
I'm sorry.
Her name is Brooks.
Brooke on Zoom. Thank you for your patience in waiting. This is your opportunity to comment on this particular subdivision. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so I live on Whitetail Drive off of Meadow Pond Road. I have 3 little boys, well, young boys. And I share everyone else's concern that lives in Meadow Pond Estates. And what everyone said, my boys, they like to fish, they ride their bikes, they ride their scooters. They're getting old enough now to go to the other cul-de-sac to see their friends that are in the other cul-de-sac. And I trust that they can go there on their bikes by themselves, because I know everyone in our neighborhood. They know there's 18 kids in this neighborhood. And I know that they're going slow. I know, there is blind spots. I think Sam said that because it's windy, there are blind spots on that road. And having that be an entranceway for 35 homes is concerning. I wrote down, I think I wrote the numbers right. Diane did the traffic study. She said about 15 cars coming and going at high peak time right now out of Meadow Pond. With Industry Drive, so with having both of those, it's another 15 cars. That's double what we're used to. That's a lot. That's double. And then if Industry Drive was taken out, which I don't think it can, because I think they need 2 egresses, but then that goes to 30 cars coming out in and out of Meadow Pond. So I guess I have the same concerns. I have little kids. We chose to build here 6 years ago because we thought this was the neighborhood. And it's just unsafe. And I don't think that it's good for any of us in our neighborhood or the town of South Berwick for all these houses to be coming in. I'm listening to everyone comment, and I think there's a lot of concern around this whole development. But I'm speaking for Meadow Pond Estates, and having that be one of the ways in and out is just not a great option. So I just wanted to voice my concern as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom? I'm gonna flip it around so I can't see it.
Can you see them all?
No, no, no.
You want me to check?
If you're on Zoom and you want to comment, please raise your hand.
Mark Lawrence, I've already raised my hand.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, great. And I'm not sure, I have a connection that's going in and out, so let me know if you can't hear me. So my clients, Meadow Pond, the homeowners association, have done a great job. I just want to make a couple of legal points that I want to make sure aren't missed. And to Hershey's point about that open space being given up, the question I would have is that, is there within the power of the planning board to review phase 1 and phase 2 and potentially trade off some open space for open space given up by MIC to add to the existing phase 1 and phase 2 to meet the requirements of that subdivision plan and create a different entrance to Samville? That's one point I think the planning board may want to consider. At the prior meeting, there was some discussion of a one-way in and a one-way out, making Meadow Pond one-way. And the concern I would raise about that is you're creating really a traffic situation for your police department that you really need to hear from. Because if a one-way entrance or a one-way exit was created on Meadow Pond, that's going to need to be enforced. And in my experience, people generally don't follow the one-way. And if you restrict vehicles, no commercial vehicles coming through, that is sometimes not followed. So the police department is going to get complaints from people in Meadow Pond. And how are you going to enforce that? And what's going to be the burden on your police department? And I think you'd be right to look to the developer to create some enforcement mechanisms, such as a camera at that entrance if it was one way, one of those automatic ticket generating cameras, and making the developer, if that's what you were thinking, paying for that. One last point on the traffic study. The traffic study really looks at exit onto Harvey and exit onto Route 4. The traffic study doesn't say what doubling the number of cars or even tripling the number of cars inside Meadow Pond is going to mean for traffic flow inside Meadow Pond. And I think that's the real issue that the people in Meadow Pond Estates are raising. It's the impact of the traffic flow within that development. It's been said that it was contemplated that this was going to be done anyway, but I would just postulate that no planning board would approve a road that twisty if they thought there was going to be an additional 35 cars going through it. If you saw that video, it's an extremely twisty road, and nobody would design a road that way to handle all those additional cars. Those are all the points I wanted to make.
Anybody else on Zoom? Great. If anybody, I would like to talk, I believe, to you, recognizing Mr. Leach.
Yes.
Okay, I do have some questions. Is there anybody that wants to add anything new?
I would like to just say, you heard it from others from Meadow Pond, the reference to 350 additional vehicles. I just want to go on record, the traffic study that was proposed or, presented tonight, drastically different numbers, but the 350, we didn't make up. It came from Mr. Wood at a previous meeting. And that's where we heard that number. And now we have a traffic study that's refuting the numbers that he put forward. So, I question where exactly is the right number, somewhere between those two? I'm not sure.
Real quick, I'd like to add to that. If I understood or if I heard the traffic study correctly, and it was based off of 2 cars per household, that is categorically false.
Name and address.
Look at our 18 household development.
Name?
Jake Run, Whitetail Drive. So 2 cars per household isn't even close. In our development, we have 60% of our 18 households with 3 or more cars. So for anyone that's studying traffic, to come out and say we're basing this on 2 cars, just don't believe that at this point. South Berwick is a destination community, school system wise, the beautiful nature of it. Nobody can sit here and tell me that these 35 houses will not attract whatever a nuclear family is nowadays. So if a traffic study is done on 2 cars, that should be thrown out right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything new for people that haven't spoken? We're going to have, I'm going to hand it over to Ken in a minute. Feel as if he would like to.
Thank you. Jack Lowe again, 45 Meadow Pond. We just heard a traffic study about 35 cars. My concern is, however, that if we connect Industrial Drive with Meadow Pond as an egress to Knights Pond and going into in a different direction, what's to prevent some of the heavy industrial equipment from using those roads to come through our neighborhood as well? That would be a really major concern for me. It also would not be very good for the road, quite honestly. There's some really big equipment. When we went on the walkthrough today, I was really actually shocked to see some of the size of the equipment that was in Industrial Drive. So I haven't heard that raised, and I think that's an important point that needs to be considered as well, was to keep them from going through that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, I'm gonna, do you have any comments on that or anything you'd like to say, anything you'd like to provide?
Well, I first want to thank everybody and all the abutters that did come to the site walk. I did say this is a pretty popular site walk, and considering the weather and that we did walk around for an hour and 15 minutes. We had the road staked out. Everybody saw the road. A couple things. Carol was asked at the last meeting, what did Sam have in mind when he was going to develop this property? And her response was more of the same. And I know a couple of the abutters had an issue with that. But when you look at how Meadow Pond Phase 1 and Phase 2 were developed, We have 18 lots on 64 gross acres, about 33.5 acres of net developable. Phase 1 and phase 2, the maximum number of lots that parcel would have supported by South Berwick's ordinance is 18. And that's how many lots are there. The lots range in size from about half an acre, 25,311 square feet, up to 46,000 square feet in phase 1. In phase 2, they're 38,000 up to 79,000 square feet. This subdivision, Samville, Meadow Pond Phase 3, I've used both terms. We have 172 gross acres, 174, 67.9 acres net developable. The most lots that could support a 35, that's what we've proposed in front of you. Same density as phase 1 and phase 2. The lot sizes range from 21,000 square feet up to 60,000 square feet, about the same lot size. If you look at the approval of phase 1, which was recorded in 2005. This is just the first 11 lots. At the end of the road, note 10 says, the construction road from tax map 13, lot 100, which is the remaining lot of mixed land development, shall be maintained as passable to emergency vehicles until such time as a second permanent route of access is provided to the subdivision. That second permanent route is what we walk today. That's the road going through Industry Drive. If you look at the approval of phase 2 of Meadow Pond, which was in 06, note 12 says lot 14 and lot 15. Lot 14 is Mr. Kenton's lot. So lot 14 and 15 are the lots that have this 50-foot right-of-way extending to the rest of the land. It's where the gate was. That note says lot 14 and 15 contain deed restrictions for the future extension of Meadow Pond Road. The area indicated in detail A and B shall be exchanged to allow the road to meet the town of South Berwick road standards. The detail provides the radius on Mr. Kenton's lot and the lot on the other side of the right-of-way. Because when the intent of the note is, when the road is going to be further developed, when lot 100 will be developed, the road has to have certain radius at the intersection of the cul-de-sac. I don't see any notes here that say it was for egress only. I did hear some testimony to that point. I submit to you that Carol's statement was true. What Sam intended to do was to continue on with a similar development of Meadow Pond. I understand there's a concern about the traffic, which is why we've done the study, Mr. Falzetti's comments. Hopefully you didn't get confused between my total trips per day and what Diane was talking about was peak hourly trips. That's why there's a difference. But we have Diane on Jen's computer. Be glad to bring her back
For right
either in
now.
person or on Zoom. So if there are any questions for me, Sandy Gay from Acapella Law is here with me. She'd be glad to answer any legal questions. Carol Mix over there, she'd be glad to answer any questions. Wyatt Page worked on the subdivision for me is here. We'd be glad to answer any questions. If you think you would like us to look at something specific traffic related, it'd be nice to have that discussion while Diane is present, although she's remote. We certainly work with you on the traffic constraints, but I believe those two notes substantiate that for the subdivisions were going to be anticipated. That's why the right-of-way extends through. That's why the note says if and when this road's going to be built further on, it's going to be built to town standards. There'll be a deed exchange of that small area to get the radius in. Other than that, as I said, I thank both boards for walking with us today. I thank all the abutters. I wish it had been a better day. But everyone did get to see the road system and where everything is, and I always think that's helpful to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sandy, what's your last name?
G-U-A-Y.
And where are you from? I'm sorry.
Catawba Law.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear, given what the evening, and happy to keep going. However, I would like to hear if there is a representative from the water district. I'd like to hear if that individual would like to add anything to the project. And first say that from time to time, we develop come up in this particular board. Came up at one of the last developments we talked about, I don't know, back in summer perhaps. Water concerns did come up. And so, I'm a little bit further interested in moving beyond, we have, the capacity to serve this particular project. And can you help us understand the water requirements and what your actual capacity is to serve? Based on information that you think you have, or if you need more, obviously, I'm not looking to put you on the spot, but I'm interested to hear that because that is a topic that this board has discussed in the past.
So in 2019.
Can you introduce yourself? Sorry.
I'm John Leach from the Southborough Water District.
Stand up too, so we can see him.
Yeah, John, you're being asked to stand up to help project some of the.
In 2019, we were requested from ATAR Engineering to provide a letter of capacity to the planning board to say that we could serve this project. Basically, a letter of capacity states that we have adequate capacity to service the 35 homes. At that time, the project kind of started off and kind of went in a lull, and now it has resurfaced. We are meeting in discussion with Mr. Wood this morning. We are going to meet with him on June 6th to go over concerns of water main sizes, fire flows, and other things that are going to impact the water district. So at this time, I don't have a lot of information to provide. I will say that with the expanded infrastructure in through Meadow Pond, we do have a potential well site in back of the development. And one of the things we've been waiting for is the expansion of the infrastructure to potentially put this water source on site, on service. So that'll be, as this development is done, that'll be moved up on our master plan to actually develop this water site.
Thereby providing additional water to the entire town.
Thereby providing additional water to the complete town, yes. Yeah.
Right. That's great. And so my question would be, could we invite you back to a separate planning board meeting to have just a general discussion on water? I would very much appreciate that.
At any time.
And I'd like to have the discussion of capacity. And I'll work with Jen and say, Jen, when we have a light evening,
Sure.
if we can put that on.
We'll see you in
Like that.
2032.
Yeah.
Works for me. I'll be retired by then.
No, you won't.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Me too.
I can take any questions. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if I may. It come up during the sidewalk when they were discussing the wells and the
Mhm.
potential future expansion. Would that three-phase power required for that? Would that be incumbent upon the town and the municipality to fund that? Or would that be a joint venture with a developer? Or do you guys, is that even on your radar scope yet?
That'll be discussed when we meet with Mr. Wood on June 6th.
Didn't write a check.
We'll do anything in our power to get someone else to pay for something. If that's, but yes, we will need three-phase power for this site. My main concern is I do not want to, after the development is done, to go back in there and have to run additional power down through there and disrupt the neighborhood. So I would like to be out ahead of the curve and provide all the infrastructure in place before the development is done, so we're not disturbing the neighborhood.
Would that be something that?
The town, we can absolutely place that contingency on there. I do not see the town being a contributor to that. That would be on the work of the developer, the condition of approval. Now, I do have a couple questions here. Everything in order, but I have my notes here. And there's a lot of common themes, alternate access, public safety issues. Accident data may be important if we can talk to the police chief about that, from both towns. But public safety, you've heard a lot about the access out of Meadow Pond, taking the left or right onto Harvey Road or Nice Pond, depending on what way you go. Depending on how the road ends up, right? We don't know where this is going to end at this point. But depending on how and where the traffic goes, I think that intersection poses some issues. I think if depending on this gate, right? Really all you're doing is now you're just funneling what would be a bunch of South Berwick residents out through Industry Drive, which I haven't heard a lot of positive feedback about this, other than to say, I heard a little bit of conflicting testimony tonight. And, you know, not only is it unsafe to pull out of Meadow Pond itself and onto Route 4, you know, been there 100 times, I get it. But I heard that, you know, it actually is easier to pull out onto Route 4 from Industry Drive, given the site distance. So I guess what I would ask is, even if a gate's put in, now you got the same rough number of trips being forced out, you know, onto, Industry Drive and out to Route 4. What, in the terms of Berwick, was Industry Drive like a prior approved subdivision or anything in your town, or was it just kind of
Do you want me to speak on?
grown?
If you could, it's commercial. I mean, it's.
Well, but was it an approved subdivision, like Pumpkin Town?
Yeah, so I used to work in Berwick, so if I can speak on it for
Yeah.
them, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you guys? So, Mike, you want me to, or do you want to? Industry Drive is an approved subdivision. It is very much an industrial park. So, we were there, most of us, right, for a site walk when Northern Pool and Spa went in. And it was snowy and it was crappy weather. And 4, 5, 6 trucks in the, 25 minutes we were there, were pulling in with rock, rubble, whatever on those trucks, okay? But yes, it is an approved site plan, for the town.
So do we know what their approved conditions of approval over there were for the access to Industry Drive and what their requirements are? Or do you have any recollection? I have no idea. You know, because what I'm hearing is some general concern that, you know, you want to look further at that Industry Drive area. Where do we go from here with that? Because we, you know, in terms of what we do, right, you kind of know what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any conditions on it for like adding residential to it.
They can't have conditions of that in Berwick, to my knowledge, unless something's changed in the last couple of months, but it is their industrial, it's their industrial zone.
Right,
So
but they
they
can go
cannot.
back and place conditions if they so choose to, can't they?
They can,
And
yep.
reopen it.
So-
They're gonna have to do something here because this is going to become in one way, shape or form an active application for them.
Yep. So they have, they're gonna have to do a site plan amendment. I don't think you were here at the last meeting, right?
No.
They're gonna have to do a site plan amendment. They can do it in an open meeting here in South Berwick, but they are gonna have to amend that for that access to be used on the Berwick side. So,
Right, so I
Or
think
not.
there's there, or not.
Or not.
So there-
Or not.
So that kind of really helps dictate, you know, what our capabilities are going to be doing, because if the access is shut down, I don't necessarily think a gate could be done.
Well, if the access is shut down, we now are missing one form of
Right,
egress. so
Right,
we'll
and
have to
so
be
which
different.
fits to another, so the common themes I'm hearing, you know, again, public safety. You know, I agree, public safety is a big issue. Not only the access up and down the road, kids playing, that kind of stuff. I'd like to know further, and I don't expect an answer, but what's the intent of Berwick? Public safety, alternate access, I heard it come up multiple times. If there's an opportunity to explore, my ears are open. And so that, but again, you have to understand, you know, you can't be unreasonable either. You gotta act within the confines of our ordinance when it comes to what we can actually do and place conditions on the applicant here. I mean, you know, it's you gotta kind of weigh both sides here. So, you know, speaking as one board member, because this is not representative of any action the board has taken, the ordinance would seem to allow this to move forward in 35 houses. And so the question now becomes, how do we make that happen? And what are conditions? What are the public safety issues? What are intersection improvements that could be placed on the requirement of this individual? to alleviate some of the concerns that were brought up. If they can be avoided by alternate access, happy day for everybody. And we'll continue the conversation, public safety just on a different access, because now you may be accessing or directly under Route 4. It's a whole other set of issues. It alleviates one issue, but causes a whole other set of issues. That I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I don't know the requirements. I don't know the legality of open space that's been prior approved, prior distributed. I mean, typically speaking, when open space occurs, it's given over to some steward, There's one, I think, a Great Thicket is the one in question, if I'm correct. That's the name I see. The other one, Great West Regional Land Trust is another one. Maybe they're one and the same, maybe it's I don't know, but anyway. So you can't just take it back, that just doesn't work. That's a larger conversation with, what's that?
This land we were referring to is not transferred to Great West Regional Land Trust. I think it's retained by the HOA.
Yeah.
It's the open space. We have other open space areas. This is behind the development. Abutting their property. We were willing to trade the back strip of that to give access to another parcel that we believe the landowner owns that could connect directly to Route 4 in exchange for the right of ways on the 2 cul-de-sacs. I don't know the legality of it. I don't know how to do it. It just seemed like a common sense approach when we thought of it.
But I will say worth pursuing, and you have an attorney, Mark, who I think does understand that option and had the idea of swapping if it all ended up equal. And you're allowed to do it, no problem with
You're
us.
gonna have to engage your attorney on that because that's owned by you. If that is, I don't know who owns every parcel out there. But that would be, an attorney conversation. And again, at the end of the day, I just want to be clear, the applicant doesn't have to accept that. So, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Just a quick statement on Route 4, Green Street Drive has a turning lane. Anywhere else that you put it on will not have a turning lane. So that's gonna be a safety issue in that. So having that turning lane would be a benefit. Not a.
Yeah, well, that left-hand turn off of Route 4 southbound
Is pretty
rough,
bad.
rough.
It's pretty bad.
Well, I'm talking about turning on Park Road.
Yeah, also, they would have to bring the Berwick side road up to standards. So that would, in turn, for Berwick, that would make it a better road for us. It would finish it for us, because right now you saw it's dirt. So, I mean, safety issues that would be beneficial as well.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
can I ask Baruch a
Yep,
question?
yep.
So I think maybe the thought process for that is that 500 feet of road that comes into question for you guys. Once that's brought up to your standards and paved, because we know that's the standard, okay? Who maintains it on the Berwick side at that point?
Question for James. Because that's not something that we would,
Is it a town road yet? No,
I'm not sure of that.
not a town road.
Not that way thing.
No. And it's a total gravel road. So as soon as Paul Amatucci from Berwick, once you pave that and blacktop it, and you run that heavy equipment, cement mixers and heavy equipment over it, in a couple of years, that road's got to be redone again. And it's right now, as we saw it today, it is in sorry shape as a gravel road. I can't imagine what it's going to look like once that equipment gets all that usage in and out on a blacktop road. I think it's going to be pretty horrible. There's we have big trucks. The cement mixers are running in and out of there. We have trucks carrying rock and gravel out of there, in and out all day long. So I think that's going to be a major issue too, about maintaining that road going forward, and the degrading of the road going forward.
And if my brain works, and sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it doesn't. Check Shapley's findings of fact from the planning board and their conditions of approval. I believe they are allowed to access that road 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Shapley is not the only one who accesses that road for the business. It's also several different contractors that are hauling in So they do a lot of grinding there if you don't know the area or what they do. And they're allowed to bring that in at any time, I believe. So that's, you might want to
24/7
check.
Operation over there, then, I mean, what about
Yeah,
the processing of the material?
yeah. So they don't process it. They don't,
Rock grinder.
but not at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they do have a second shift that runs until about 1, 2 o'clock in the morning there. Check those because I'm pretty sure that he does have the okay to do that. And then the problem for code enforcement becomes, and Irish isn't here. However, if the new homeowners have complaints, that complaints fall in Berwick. So those are all things that really need to be sorted out, I think, by Berwick first. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know enough about that road. I mean, I clearly drove it today and like you said, it is in rough shape. But is it possible that it was wide enough that you could have a divider and create industrial and residential parallel roads? How much traffic is across it? I mean, if there's a lot of back and forth traffic, because the piles of rock are on one side and the grinders on the other, that's not gonna work, but maybe I'll throw that out there, and I think that I'm just gonna leave it at that, but. Because I mean, in one way, clearly we've heard a lot that, and seen a lot in terms of not exciting to go maybe through the HOA, but also we do have big trucks here and we're all concerned about safety, and how can we mitigate that?
There's also a Stone Lane. But Stone Lane is where
It's in your area, so again, we appreciate your cooperation with our looking through conditions. Is Stone Lane, which is on the other side of the garage, the bus garage. The southbound, the south side, there's 6 houses back on Stone Lane. Is that, doesn't say private drive, is that a town road? It's in your map, R72.
What do we, yeah, so I think it is. What do we think is reasonable? You folks need to have some time to talk or think about this.
Yeah.
What do you want?
We should
Couple
consider keeping the public hearing open so we can digest some of this, and if that becomes a viable alternative, because clearly we're gonna have to get more input from the abutters on Stone Lane if that's a.
They're gonna have this, they're gonna have the same thing to say.
Yeah,
Correct, I 100% understand, but just purely from a public safety standpoint, if we can keep residential traffic out of an industrial zone. I think it's in our best interest to do so, and that's something that had not even been on my radar scope previously, so.
Well, I hadn't considered keeping the public hearing open, but I am gonna do. Either way, well, I'll go down that road in a minute.
We're gonna talk to Mark.
Can I ask one more question? Is your client considered Stone Lane at all?
I don't think we have right title in Stone Lane, Paul, and I'm pretty sure, Paul, it's a private, unimproved road. I don't know, Mr. Chair, you might, we've heard the comments, maybe you want to keep the public hearing open and wait till we come
Well,
back to you. I mean, what
I
do you
don't think
think?
any public hearing. I've never been confronted with this one. In the sense of, can we have another one? I don't see why we couldn't. However. We could continue the public hearing, seek out some additional legal advice. Yeah, so what we do that.
Leaving the public hearing
Yeah,
open is
we'll
appropriate.
continue the public
Yeah.
hearing and we'll seek legal advice.
Yeah.
What do you want?
I just want to say, I'm happy to be talking about this
Yeah.
ad infinitum, but I think we've all had input. And there isn't a lot more to say, and that I think we've now handed it over to the development team. To think about your comments and come back to us with something a little different, because otherwise we're just gonna be right back where we began. So I guess your charge would be to think about, and get more information, so.
So we will continue at this point. We're gonna bring this to a close. I think we're gonna start going round in circles at this point, frankly. We've heard a lot tonight, I think all around. We'll continue the public hearing. We're gonna seek legal advices to, if we need to legally, if we can. I honestly don't know. Well, I don't see why we can't. I've done it in other lines of work. So we'll continue it until the next meeting. When's our next meeting?
2 weeks.
2 weeks from tonight. When do you?
It is the 17th.
When do you folks,
He can just.
you continue, when do you folks meet?
Thursdays.
Thursdays. Okay, so you'll be meeting tomorrow? Okay. I'd also want to add, even though the public hearing is open, the bylaws allow me to continue to accept comment for an additional 3 days. So I would like to think that we've heard a lot of comments tonight. I did my best to write it down. I have some common themes. But if anybody wants to take this as an opportunity, any legal counsel involved to kind of what I would say, submit a brief on any additional comments that they want us to be aware of, putting something into writing for us and submitting that by close of business, 5 p.m. on Friday. Would give you an additional opportunity to give us something in writing, so we have something in writing from you. Again, I have a lot of comments here, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. But again, we'll leave that comment period open until Friday at 5. So if you want to add anything in writing, get it to us Friday by 5. That being said,
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
before you close,
Yeah,
if you could, would your agency and your legal team be amenable? Because I just don't want to wait. You guys be amenable, and do you have it within your purview to use Stone Drive? Is that a reasonable accommodation as far as your team is concerned?
From what I know about Stone Drive, it's a private drive that we have no right, title, and interest in, so and I don't like answering on the fly. But
Understood.
my on the fly answer.
Would you be able
is-
to get back to us on that?
My on the fly answer is Stone Drive's probably not going to work.
Okay.
So,
Just from a public safety standpoint, when we're not commingling,
yeah,
you know, industrial traffic, private traffic, it would be in the best interest of all involved if we could pursue that. So I just wonder if it's something you're amenable to before we waste our administrative effort
Right.
chasing that.
I don't know if your comments wasted on me about not public residential, commercial traffic. I just don't think Stone Drive's the answer. There could be another answer.
would you, following along in that vein, we've heard multiple comments about alternate. Is that something that you would be willing to look at?
I'd be willing to look at it. I just don't know if I can give you if you're looking for something from us by Friday.
No comment. I'm looking for comment.
Okay.
If anybody wants us to walk away with something in writing, if you have a bulleted list of 10 points, you need to let us know.
Mr. Chair, the actual applicant would like to speak.
Ms. Mick.
Wanted to say something about Stone Drive. We actually put that in there for the couple of my children, my grandchildren. And Berwick we had to bring that right up to approved standard by you folks before we could even go further to put the houses in there that we put in there. That and Stone Drive was just a dirt road at the time. So we did bring that up to your standard for public use.
And you have family members that currently reside on that road, ma'am?
They since have sold,
Okay,
but that would be on the right-hand side of Stone Drive going in. And I don't know, but there was quite a chunk of land out there. Yeah,
yes, ma'am.
yeah.
So if we continue this public hearing, reiterating, get us any comments in writing that you want to be on record with us by Friday, close of business. We'll continue the public hearing until the 17th. Do you believe that to be reasonable? In terms of coming up and going back and thinking about what, if anything, you can come up with. Again, we're not gonna place a requirement on you here. If you would prefer, we'll postpone it until, I understand time is money. And, I would be willing, if the board concurs, we can postpone it until June. If every party needs additional time, because you folks really need to talk as well. And you're only gonna have really what amounts to one meeting. So I think in deference to Berwick, we should probably now, as I sit here and think about it, hold off until our first meeting in June.
June 7th.
Yeah, so if we continue this until June 7th, would that be,
That'd be preferable, Mr. Chair.
okay, would that work for you folks? Give you some adequate time? Okay, absolutely. Okay.
Before you
Yeah.
finish, Mr. Chair, if I can, are you guys okay if we send new abutter notices for that June 7th meeting so that we can invite everyone back here again. For the
So
continue.
you're sending them a we are, Jeff.
We will.
Okay,
I just want, you guys get charged for them. So are you okay with it?
sure, we're okay.
Okay, I'll do it.
Jenny, would that include, or could it include, abutters on, Stone Lane, or is that our purview or your purview?
If the chair tells me to do that, I can
We
definitely do
can
that.
send a courtesy copy. You're gonna need to tell us who you want us to send it to, but the question really would be. I feel a little uncomfortable saying that. It would be a courtesy notification. My preference would be that it come from you folks, frankly, and you know, sit here and think about it because it's your town.
Yes, sir.
I would really prefer that you do that. I don't want to get into any potential legal issue, because I don't even think they're in a butter for this project, are they?
So if Stone Lane is
Are
going
they?
to be,
Well, yeah, but we're talking here.
if Stone Lane's gonna be on the table, then they would. Why don't I send over the butter notice, the public hearing announcement to you guys, and then you do what you wish with it. How does that sound?
Just one comment about the Stone Lane. I'm pretty sure right behind that is the stormwater management for that subdivision. And I don't think a lot of that's gonna be able to get touched.
You mean this big pond right here?
That big pond?
Big pond?
Yes. And
Oh, for
around the
commercial,
building,
yeah, right.
around the buildings, there's also stormwater that goes into the pond.
Hmm.
So to add anything on that, I'm gonna say is.
An underpass. We're gonna go under.
Are you suggesting a big?
A little bit.
All right, so I think we have a clear thing. We're gonna continue the hearing until June 7th. We'll bring it up at 7 o'clock. And so, comments by close of business this Friday. And so
Get into this record.
to get into this record right here today. Please keep your comments direct and thoughts, honestly. Commentary is okay. I understand that, but since we're continuing the hearing, let's come back and try to keep it business focused, in terms of trying to come to some conclusions on this. So, while I'm not going to limit comment, we'll hear it, please keep that in mind for the future. One last comment, sir, you've been raising your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the best way for us to get questions? I just have a couple of questions. What's the best way to get that to you guys? That's all. I don't.
Email them to Jenny McKay,
Okay,
code
thank you.
enforcement officer. Yeah, and you can include that as part of your writing, and it can be questions too, folks.
I just have a couple.
Yeah,
questions.
and in fairness, those comments received will be distributed to the applicant. Everybody will have a copy. Okay, so don't put anything in writing that you don't want people seeing. That being said, the public hearing is closed 9:15, and we'll continue this on June 7th. What's the board want to do? You want to go home or you want to? Oh, right, third party review.
So, hold on. So the public hearing is tabled,
Public hearing is continued,
continued. Thank you.
June 7th.
June 7th. Okay. If you're on your way out, please sign our form if you came, just so that we can add you to the minutes. If we get some. Yeah. We're gonna try.
So my question.
I have a bunch. And they were.
I don't know if we're supposed to.
So I just kind of wrote their name and kind of say Kirby Road. You know what I mean?
I know Mr. Don't you have 6 million nowadays?
Tuesday. I know.
It only gets better from here. Huh? Yes, it's gonna, I think he's gonna open, I think you have to open public comment. We haven't even done minutes yet, so. Just gonna have a public comment tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Public comments.
Stick around.
You know the town hired an economic development person. Right?
They do what's up,
You
anything.
know,
Have a great day.
hired economic development.
Well, they did that 4 years ago, but they didn't do anything.
You guys, you don't have time for you guys. You have to. You have to, you don't.
I can't help you there.
Gotcha. Yep.
I have a question for the. We get to
Oh,
whether
you're
we're
waiting
down
for
to
the.
this third.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
I just have a couple questions. Nice.
Email or call? Yeah.
Can I just, hang on, folks, I want to move this meeting along, I want to go home.
Okay, good.
Did any of the information tonight give you pause? I'm not asking for any conversation about whether you agree or disagree. Do you want to go back and discuss anything before we authorize a third-party review on what might potentially be a change in plans?
Right, I think I would ask you to hold off on the third party review, Mr. Chairman, until we look at the alternate access.
So is there a motion to table the awarding of the third-party review? We've already motioned to move forward with the third-party review, but is there a motion?
I make a motion to table the third party review.
Second.
Oh, you guys got great stereo.
Jenny?
Okay.
Jenny, based on past experience with third-party reviews,
I'm not found.
it's not
We
going,
have not found to.
we have not, we've ordered it with the motion. We're gonna table the decision on the third. Okay, I just
That's
want
fine,
to make
but
sure we're clear.
Can I just give you guys some facts before you do it? So we sent out 4 letters in 4 packets. We emailed everybody and we sent out a packet to 4 different firms. We only heard back from 1. So it's okay to table it. But when we untable it, we might want to figure out if we're okay with the one that responded that said, yes, they could do it and
Yeah.
what we got, or if you want to send out to more people at that time, but you guys don't have to decide right now.
Yeah, we'll decide later on. I think it really depends on if there's going to be major substantive changes here, you know.
Yep.
We'll make that determination down the road.
Sounds great.
So a motion was made, seconded. Is there any further conversation? Being none, all in favor? Aye. It's tabled. So we bring it back up. Right.
Thank you very much.
And so.
For the time, thank you for the meeting.
All right, what else do we have?
Please. Check and see.
I don't want to vote.
So does any, we're gonna, any objections other than public comment? Are there any objections from the board members to putting off all other items until the next meeting?
No objection
No
whatsoever.
objections, okay, so that's done, and so Jenny, we're putting that off until the next meeting.
Thank you for.
Yeah,
Thank you guys for-
thank you for coming, so I appreciate it, we'll just kind of wait there. Public comment,
Are you,
public comment?
Public
you have
comment.
something you wanted to say?
I believe we're here on some rezoning of the occupancy of small businesses.
So because it's an agenda item, can't come up during public comment.
Oh,
Right.
sorry, it's a procedural issue, whereas if it's on the agenda, we would speak to it then. Public comment is for anything that is not on the agenda, and we just,
We're supposed to.
You were, and I'm sure you were, and
I'm glad it came because it's really interesting.
sure,
so why don't we go ahead and.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Taking his time.
Let's just do it.
And so.
And we want the whoopie
Yeah,
pie.
let's hear.
Whoopie
Yeah.
pie, I was here for that whoopie pie thing, so let's
There is
do
a
it.
new, there, under new business, there is discussion. An ordinance amendment, chapter 140-43 related to home.
Did you guys vote to
occupation.
table the rest of the agenda?
Hang on, what?
Did you vote to table the rest of
We
the
didn't
agenda?
vote back Tabling, we said, let's just do it all next week. So there's no
Perfect.
Technical motion.
Good.
Uh,
Did we get, do you have more to share? And did you get?
So, home occupation. Yes. Is there going to be anybody that wishes to speak on it?
Yes,
Now.
I'd love to speak.
Okay, thank you very
Oh,
much.
thanks.
Jenny, can you give us a general overview of home occupation? I'll reserve some time for you at the conclusion of this.
This eating dinner here at 9 p.m.
Having a sugar problem.
I'm with her on that one. I didn't get dinner.
What are we talking about? Home occ? You want to talk about it?
Do you have recommendations on revisions to it?
Hold on 1 second. I have a little write up. Okay,
I skipped over that somewhere.
I don't have a word for
so if I may read my little spiel.
Please.
So home occupation in the town of South Berwick. So the former code enforcement officer, myself and the town manager, spoke in great detail about this back in July when I first came on board. We started to look at the ordinance. Issues have arisen from the ordinance as it is today. If you look at our ordinance, we have a minor home occ with a set of standards that's allowed. And then we have a major home occ with a set of standards that needs site plan review. In some, in some zones, you can just come to the code office and have a special use permit. That's B1 and B2 zoning. So it's really putting a damper on some of our small businesses that are coming to town. So the minor home occ is a quick $25 processing fee in our office, and we sign a form and they're on their way. Major home occ can cost a new small business owner up to $4,500 in front of the planning board in some cases. By times they have their site plan review, their public hearing and their notifications, and everything that kind of goes along with that. So the amendment shows the minor and major home occupation ordinances kind of like smushed together. Okay, so we took the best of both of them and kind of put them together here in front of you. The major addition to, well, there's a lot of additions to it, but the major additions is if somebody has a home occ and they are selling artwork, okay, and they create artwork and they sell it on Etsy, it's $25. So if they want to sell artwork in an outbuilding, it's $4,500. So what we did, what we're proposing as staff is you guys look through the ordinance. If you have any additions or changes, we'd be happy to do that. But the most important one is it's the standard 9, if you have it in front of you. And the new proposed amendment where it says no traffic shall be generated by such home occupation in such volumes that it will create hazardous conditions in the neighborhood. So that was kind of already there. No more than 20 trips a day should be allowed. So that's in other ordinances in surrounding communities. And what happens now is if you have minor home occ, you can't have any on-site sales. Okay. But if you have major home occ, you can. So that's the major change. Instead of having the two separate, we're putting them together and combining them and creating this like fairness across the board here in South Berwick. That's the intent.
So there won't be a major and a minor one at all. There'll just be one.
There will be one, and it's home occupation.
But there are other things that distinguish each of them. So what I'm wondering is if the problem is just around the whoopee shack, let's just change that little piece of it because that does seem patently unfair. And also we could change the application fee if we wanted to.
I just want to say that it has nothing to do with that business.
Okay.
It has everything to do with every other small business in this community. We are not changing it for one. We're looking at this as a whole. There are several small businesses that are affected by this ordinance as we have it now.
Fair enough. But okay, but if it's the problem is this outdoor building, can't we just change that piece of it without?
No.
Why? Why can't we just change that piece?
So if you guys want to take a look at both standards, minor home occ, major home occ, kind of know what the differences are, check out the new proposed ordinance. And then maybe like we can come back and talk about it at a later time. That's fine. Minor home occ doesn't allow, it's way too late. Any signage, any advertising. Major home occ allows a 2x2 sign.
One allows employees, one doesn't, right?
One allows, yep, employees, one doesn't. Yep.
So, there is a lot here. And with stuff like this, again, I've had these similar conversations in the past about other items. We need to be careful of not saying no.
Of course.
But again, about what you're potentially allowing in what would it be any zone in town. And so, I just want us to be cognizant of that. any impacts that those might have. We just went through a whole multi-year process on another item similar to home occupation. I believe you know what that is. And are we creating
I thought
a set of unfair standards?
I thought there would be a conflict there.
Yeah, that was one can go through my mind. Yeah. I'd like to look at it more. In theory, I'm in favor of it. In theory, I don't have a problem. I do want to think about it some more. It just seems a little short for
Can I,
a home occupation standard.
can I ask, do other towns have a distinction in their code for minor and a major? Do you know? I mean, you might not know, so.
It just depends where you are. It depends where you are.
Okay.
I can say Mike, Berwick does not. Only has one. A lot of towns have one, a lot of towns have two, a lot of towns kind of spell out what that minor and major home looks like what businesses are allowed under both. It's really, really spelled out in a lot of different ways. It's hard to answer that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Any questions on the planning board at this point?
No, I'm looking forward to reading it actually.
Yeah.
And also,
The chance to.
yeah,
I'm the major and we make comments, whereas tonight we did not have.
Yeah. And then the other.
I think the general purpose of doing this is to, I mean, obviously you heard me spoke today, I'm pro-business, we need business in this town. I think anybody that's running a small business, especially where the economy is, whatever, they're just trying to make ends meet or whatever. If they meet the criteria, if they come in, like, for example, where the whole criteria with, this is a broad brush, but with her criteria, the only difference between a farm stand and her was she was baking a good, so she couldn't sell it. She could sell 8,000 whoopie pies if we delivered the side of the road. You just couldn't come into our driveway. So I'm spending we're spending $2,600.
Am I missing something here?
That's
Yeah.
exactly. So she has state records, we pay state taxes, she has her ID, we have to have they'll come in and test our water every year. They have to check the surroundings where we bake the goods. We have more than anybody selling honey or pine cones. And yet the only difference is in the ordinance is you can't physically pull in our driveway and buy it. We can deliver them to you at the end of the driveway, but you can't pull in our driveway.
the problem is if you have a farm stand, it's added on. Problems are.
Okay.
You represent a particular business.
We'll be back.
Oh,
We'll be
okay.
back short.
Yeah, I know where you are. Every bridge, yeah, right now.
I'll come up myself.
Not right now, don't.
So I look like I.
Oh, I'm just
But
wondering.
this is a, sorry, go ahead. Usually I'm John.
Oh,
Hey, this is a Board of Appeals
yeah.
thing, just to let you know.
What we say here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep the comments general.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
What license do you have in terms of a health license? Do you have?
We should steer away
Stay away
from
from
that
that.
specific conversation at this point. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you go on here.
Just the ordinances.
Yep.
There would be specification between something like a teeny tiny business that is open one day a week and producing no like obnoxious traffic or noise or all that stuff. And then the bigger business, even if it's a home that's open 7 days a week, has a ton of traffic, is making $100,000 a year. I mean, there should be differences there. And I just feel like that's not, if I go to the state and I've got all my licenses and I'm paying insurance to protect my business, that especially the specific, nobody can come onto my property is just, what is the reasoning behind that? So in looking at the ordinances, what is the reasoning behind each of those states?
So are you advocating for keeping minor and major?
I don't mind if it's.
I'm advocating.
It should be,
Go ahead, you feel, no, you go, I love this, and you usually don't talk like this, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, there should be different stipulations to me, but obviously a Walmart's not gonna be a home occupation business. I don't think home occupation businesses are gonna be like corporate or giant or like, so
Fair enough, they
maybe,
can.
Right.
Fair
Yeah,
enough,
so-
yeah, fair enough.
maybe it doesn't make sense to have a major and a minor. Maybe for home occupation, you just stipulate in there, you know, if you make over this amount of money or if traffic becomes this heavy on, you know, if you're, I'm not speaking right, but you know what
At
I'm
a certain
saying. like-
square footage, you
Yeah.
can push out into a commercial. zone.
Exactly.
That's what you're thinking.
Well, the bylaws, so. Right, and it shouldn't be because she sells whoopie
And I should be
pies.
able to have
It should be, if she's by the state, she is well to do what she has. The only stipulation is by the town that says she can't have. And these, a lot of these ordinances are outdated and a lot of them were put in by small businesses that were downtown. Lot of the reasons you're having the problem you have right now, I know why these were passed. So a lot of the reasons these were passed was they were protecting their own business because they didn't want somebody else in town. That's why a lot of these zoning and ordinances were put in. And so going beyond that, she grows the business and she gets big, well, we can't do it out of our house anyway. We gotta either come to the town and say we gotta put a new building up, we gotta move, come down an industrial park. I mean, I already had to put a double Dutch oven in there. I can't put any more ovens in there because electric bill is gonna go through the roof. So I mean, a small business is a small business and it's, you know, so I think the procedure that they're trying to do with the ordinance is good to the point where, you know, if my neighbor's complaining, I'm getting beyond myself, but if where she's open 7 days a week and that's our primary business, that's different. We're running a business then. We're not running a mom and pop food stand. When you put in for a business, like our actually property is zoned commercially, my mother was gonna put a stand in there. She had, you can't have trucks over this size, you can't have deliveries after, so, you know, before so-and-so in the morning. There was all stipulations in there. So when you're running a small business, we don't have that. When you're running an actual business, that's, you know, we're gonna grow beyond that. But all these places in town, Johnny Hayes started his small business down in town with 2 cars and detailing. Now he's got a big business and moved because he couldn't do it there and he moved out somewhere else. Businesses grow. But we gotta find a way to not, you know, somebody deter a small person that wants to upgrade, because you don't know what they're gonna be. They could be the next big guy in South Berwick. I think we need to facilitate that as long as we're not inhibiting on our surroundings. We're in a rural area. And that's the one thing I want to bring up today in the zoning. We have different zonings out where we are. You guys need a quarter of an acre to build a house. I need, on my side of the road is 3 acres. I walk across the street and he's got 2 acres. Now, I don't come down and complain about that because I don't have that much land to be able to complain about building zones. But there are zonings throughout the town. Now, when we put a sign up that we were complaining about, we did a nice wooden sign, goes with, I'm not gonna, one of the arguments I want to put in here was about lighting and whatever. We didn't light our sign. I don't want neon. I don't want to drive out on Emery's Bridge and see neon signs.
Mr.
So,
Chair, I think we need to keep it general to the ordinance change
Okay.
and not personal business because,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
I hear you. Myself, I hear you. I hear a lot of yeses on this side. I think what we'll do is we'll probably move that to a workshop.
Yeah, and I think,
And I'd like to see if Denise can be here and join us for that.
That's
Sure.
great. That's a
Yeah,
great idea.
yeah.
I like that.
Sure.
I like
Mhm.
that.
and just
I'm
know.
willing to meet earlier in the day on that too.
Yeah,
So-
perfect. Just if I may just say one more thing about the ordinance change, it flips it from the planning board back to the code enforcement office where we have enforcement action, we are the enforcers of it. So it flips it back to us with what's allowed under home OC or what whoever the code enforcement officer is sees fit to move it to planning board as a commercial business or a bigger business at that time.
Does it mean it has to be permitted through building? Or permitted?
It already is. So if they came to you for a home OC,
Right.
and you guys give approval, we still have a form and a special use permit that we have to give through the code office after you approve it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
so it would take that piece out and then the decision would be if it falls under home OC.
There's so many people.
I
You'd
think
be
we're gonna see
surprised.
more of
Okay.
it. I think we're gonna see more of it.
And I think that's a great follow-up. I've got a building permit right now. Jen has to come and inspect. You give out a small business permit. This is what we're doing. This is what we put forward. This is what we expect. Jen comes in and checks it out. Are you doing everything that is under what we're doing with guidelines? And that's the whole follow-up on what her job is. And if that, whatever, I won't go there, but if she comes in and inspects the plumbing or the electricity and it's wrong, it needs to be fixed. There's a follow-up of giving that permit. The permit is given to us that we do our diligence to fulfill that. Her job is to make sure, come in 6 months later, yep, you're doing everything to plan, good. And if she gets something that from a voice, a little bird, and hears that we're doing something wrong, then she comes in and follows it up. That's the code enforcement. That's knowing what's.
I'd like to discuss with you, Jen, or additional town staff, this ordinance in a workshop setting.
Sure.
This does have some potential public significance to it, because it could affect a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I know the town frankly is pro-business, so I'd like to have
Sure.
some hearty comments. I'd like to have that discussion. Whether or not the planning board actually needs to get involved in some of this stuff. And whether there should be another level of staff review, staff approval. Because some of this stuff, frankly, I'm not so sure some of it needs to come to us. And it should just be approved by the staff. If it meets the code requirement of a HOMOC, what do they need to come before us for?
Yeah.
So, I'd like to have that conversation as well. In general.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of parts of the code that we've been talking about need
Yeah.
to be reviewed, and there's a bigger picture here, but yes, we should at least maybe dig into this. That would be great. I think that'd be good.
So
Okay,
let's have a workshop at some point.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a bigger appreciation for what you do now.
There we go.
Have a good night, Patty.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
See you Monday. See you Monday.
Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna put everything off until.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
That was the first thing.
Was that?
That's pretty painful.